Gbogbo ala lè kó e. Gbogbo ala lè kó e. Èkó 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 arómi sálẹ̀ gbẹ̀lẹ̀gbẹ̀. Èkó ní bàjẹ́ Èkó ní bàjẹ́ rárá.
It's nice to have you with us on this week's edition of Eko Onibaje on NTA Lagos Channel 10, the station for excellence. On this week's edition of the program, we'll revisit some issues that we started some time ago. Yes, we know on this program that we say Eko Onibaje, which literally means Lagos must prosper. And if Lagos has to prosper, the people in it has to also be prosperous. Are you a Lagosian and do you think you are poor? Oh, I don't think anybody living in Lagos has any reason to be poor. We are focusing on, is it really true that an average Nigerian or Lagosian, as it were, still living below the $1, poverty line? Welcome back. Eko Onibaje is the program on NTA Lagos Channel 10, the station for excellence. And I'm glad being joined by Mr. Nojeem Jimoh, the Group Executive Director of Tyros Holdings Limited. You are welcome to Eko Onibaje.
Thank you very much.
Yes. When we say Lagos must prosper, what was the literally meaning of Eko Onibaje? You want to tell us?
Well, I think Eko Onibaje actually means that Lagos must not degenerate, if we translate it literally. However, to give it the translation which you have given, I think is very much in order as well. If it doesn't degenerate, then that means it is prosperous. Okay. So,
all right. So now let's look at the inhabitants of Lagos, people in Lagos. They are of the opinion that 80% of Lagosians are in the poverty line. Is that correct from your own assessment?
I wouldn't know what the percentage is, but yeah, there are very many poor people in Lagos. And what is my measure of poverty? You only have to look around and see the number of able-bodied, potentially active young men and women standing around. You look at every newspaper stands, you see the newspaper man crowded by young men, sometimes up to 20 of them who should be at work, but who have come to even read the paper because they cannot afford to buy the paper. Yeah, so as you walk around, even coming into your studio here, you walk through the market, the number of people just walking around aimlessly, having nothing in particular doing, is overwhelming. Yeah, so from that viewpoint, yeah, I wouldn't say 80%, as I do not have official figures, but there are very many poor people in Lagos.
Okay, also from your point of view, do you think that this slogan of people living under the $1, poverty line and all that, how would you also rate that comparatively to what we're discussing?
It's an interesting one because $1 is only 150 naira. And with 150 naira, you can buy a loaf of bread, which an adult of my size, if they are big eaters, can actually finish in one go. Yes, so if anyone lives below the $1 line, then they are literally unable to afford even one, let alone 3 square meals. There is possibly an exaggeration of the situation, but that is not to discredit the statement that there are people who live below the poverty line.
For a while, you were also outside of this country. Comparatively, how would you relate living of an average Lagosian to, at the outside world, the UK, US,
Well, poverty is even relative in terms of definition. I mean, what is poverty in the UK or in London is so totally different from poverty in Nigeria. I mean, I think real poverty we find in Nigeria, Lagos inclusive. The same level or degree of poverty you do not find in the developed world. For instance, however poor you may be in the UK, your shelter is guaranteed. If you find anyone sleeping on the street, it will be because they probably have problems like drug or alcohol problems. Certainly, you cannot be so poor that you cannot afford a roof over your head. And however poor you may be, you are still able to afford free square meals in the UK, in America, because the state takes control of these issues. Indeed, the state pays your rent if you don't have the means to pay your own rent, and the state gives you token that you use to buy food. Even as a family of, say, 6, the state gives you enough money. You may not have the luxury or leftover to do what is now luxury to you, but the state takes care of it. Yet you will be described or classified as being poor. Yet you live in a block of flats, in some cases that is comparable to what we find in Ikoyi or Victoria Island. But real poverty we find in our own society.
Okay, quite interesting. It's a dream of having a mega city like Lagos, comparable to the Western world. Some people have criticized even that idea alone, that this is meant to pauperize the already poor people in Lagos. And you just talked about, giving shelter, accommodation, and feeding people. Do you think the government's policy of making Lagos a mega city has taken care of the poor in this state?
Thank you. See, the whole idea of a mega city, I think, is greatly misunderstood by people. If you go on the internet or you go into Wikipedia, type in mega city, you'll see the definition that it gives you. It is any city or metropolitan area in which there are 10 million or more people residing is a mega city. So in that regard, Lagos is already a mega city. The additional definition is that you have about a minimum of 2,000 people per square kilometers, which again, if you look around Lagos or you go around Lagos, you find far in excess of that number living in Lagos. So from that definition, Lagos is already a mega city. However, our understanding, or the average Lagosian's understanding of a mega city, is a city that becomes like London or becomes like New York, Dubai. That is the people's understanding. That is okay, no problem at all. But then people are saying slum clearance as a part of the measures to take us to this mega city. No, these are basic,
which is at their expense.
At their expense, right? Now, this is government trying to bring sanity into Lagos. By the way, I'm not a politician. I have no loyalty to any party, but I am a voting member of the public.
Social commentator.
And I'm a social commentator. Now, demolishing slums is part of the process of attaining modernity in the society. Now, I think it's only a coincidence that is come at a time that we are talking about mega city and stuff like that. But demolishing slums does not make us a mega city. However, the government has a responsibility when you displace a people or a group of people to give them alternatives. Even as we speak, people displaced from Morocco, from Ilado, in the areas that is now known as Lekki, some of them are still in court, some are still lobbying over 2 decades after they were displaced from the areas to be compensated and to get a dwelling over their head. So if that is happening, then people would have a legitimate reason to say that the government is pauperizing them further in the course of wanting to attain this mega city status.
You actually took it from me, because people have the opinion that to turn Lagos to a mega city, you have to send people parking from the roadside, for instance, so that the rich people can have a clear road to drive on. So that's probably why they think that they are being pauperized. Yeah, their interest is not being taken.
That is the average person's understanding of this mega city issue. But the truth is, there is no bearing or relationship between clearing people off the bridges, under the bridges, off the roads, and then attaining a mega city status. Now, we cannot be here and allow modernity to leave us behind. Our policymakers and leaders all travel overseas. Let's even leave the likes of London and New York behind. You go to Hong Kong, which only attained independence in the 1990s. You see a modern city. You go to Singapore, Dubai. I was in Dubai when Dubai was just a desert. There was nothing there. Dubai did not become what it is today because it wanted to attain a mega city status. Indeed, Dubai is not a mega city. By virtue of the number of people living and working in Dubai, it just wouldn't have the population to officially meet that criterion of being a mega city. So people do have legitimate concerns and excuses, but the reason is not because Lagos wants to attain a mega city. But then the onus is on the government to properly explain to people what this mega city is all about.
Okay, we're talking about explanation and caring for them and giving them alternative. There are also this policy of free education, free health care, at least to a certain category of people. And then, of course, the one that really concerns them, or anybody who tries to do one form of business as a small entrepreneur, they're also faced with double taxation. That is why they feel that some of these policies are pauperizing them. Any comment on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's unfortunate because, you see, the likes of me wouldn't be sitting before you making these comments were it not for Awolowo and Jakonde's free education policy. I come from a very deprived background. My parents did not have the means, could not have had the means to have sponsored my education in its entirety, and that could have been the difference between this person speaking to you now and a totally different person. I mean, I benefited from free education and even almost free meals in the university. In my first year in university, I met what was known as the meal ticket system of freeing the students, and the food was so much. If anything, we were guilty of wasting food in my first year in university, and that was just 83, 84. And that was government being responsive. And but as we speak today, I have no doubt that it is affordable to the government. But the level of corruption is such that things like that, you cannot steal as much as people steal in government and still be able to offer all this to people. Free education should be non-negotiable. I'm aware that Lagos State government, for instance, is introducing tuition fees in LASU and places like that, right? But if you look at the means of the average Lagosian, right, the likes of me may be able to afford it, but the average Lagosian is not able to afford it. And then when tuition fee was introduced in the UK, and there is a sense in comparing ourselves to the UK in that is where Lagos State especially should aspire to be next, right? Lagos should not be comparing itself to any other state in Nigeria. It should be aspiring to be there. The policy was introduced by the Tony Blair regime, but they said this policy won't take place for 5 years. It wouldn't commence for 5 years. Why? So that those who started university then, without expecting to be paying fees, would have passed through the system, so that the parents of children to come to university in 5 years' time would have enough time to plan for the children to go to university. And then for those who are unable to afford that fee, the government takes it over 100%. And when these people graduate and they start to earn, I think, £21,000, it's not even from day one. If you graduate and you are earning 16, 17, 18, 19, 20,000, the government will not deduct a penny. But from the moment you start to earn £21,000, then they start to claw that money back interest-free. So the student does not pay any interest to the government. And then there is a maximum number of years during which that money will be taken back from you, depending on your salary. If, say, they will take the money over 15 years, if in 15 years' time you are not earning enough to have paid the entire money, then that's it. The government will not continue. Whatever they have deducted up to that point, that is the end. So you can see that in that is a genuine, a sincere intention of helping people so that people are not discouraged through. So our government in Lagos State can certainly borrow a leaf from this.
Interesting. But, you know, on the other hand, people complain of Lagos being cost of living very high. And I'm also amazed that on a daily basis there's influx into the city. We're not having urban rural migration. You know, people keep coming. That means there must be something in it here for them to keep coming. What's your take on this?
Well, it fits very well with what you see around the world. People living the rural areas and then migrating en masse to the city. The city is where the jobs are, or so we believe anyway. Certainly relative to the rural areas, there are no jobs there. I mean, somebody finishing university in my mom's village, somewhere called Yobo, on the outskirts of Abeokuta. I mean, I was in Yobo about 2 years ago. There is absolutely nothing for anyone finishing university to do in Yobo. So, if they want to work, they either move to Abeokuta, which is the city, or they come to Lagos, and you will find majority coming to Lagos. And what you find in Yobo, you find in very many places across the world. So Yobo that my mom grew up in some 90-something years ago, and the Yobo of today, in terms of opportunities that it offers to people, is almost as it was 90-something years ago. So people have to come to the city and hope to find something. Unfortunately, most do not find anything to do, but that transition or migration is not about to end anytime soon. And forget about people leaving the cities to go to the rural areas or countryside. It's not going to happen unless you are going there to farm.
Exactly. You're joking out of me, because if the white collar jobs are not there, I'm supposed to be encouraging some of these youth to divert their attention there, because I think that one pays now. But before you answer, you know, on this program we also have a forum where we interact with the people who feel their pulse on whatever topic we are discussing, and Fatima does that so well for us. And I think it's now time to give her the opportunity to ask them some of these questions. Time to hear their responses.
Poverty has really eaten deep into the life of the people in Lagos here. If they are sincere, they know what to do. At least they should build low-cost housing for poor. They should have work, create work. Government should create work.
But if the government should take it upon themselves to make sure that the children are being educated from primary level to tertiary education, it will really help poverty. Because if they come out from school, there's no how they won't become nuisance in society.
You can look at it critically. We see that our government, they are not really doing enough for us. They are the ones that are sharing the money among themselves. The money did not reach we masses.
To alleviate poverty in Lagos, there are so many things. Even on the part of the individuals, to be self-employed, one should be able to sit down and think on what he or she can do in order to help himself. Because the government has a lot of things to do.
People are really suffering. People are suffering and they are smiling.
The issue of rent is another serious problem, because people rent apartment now with a fortune.
From the school, start teaching people how to do something with their hands. We must start teaching them trade, things, entrepreneuring, teaching, so that they know that when they are out of school, if they get the job, fine. If they don't get the job, they will be able to do something with the training and the trade that they have also learned in the school.
Quite interesting is this slogan that don't think of what your government can do for you, think of what you can also do for the government. And we always say that what exactly have you done to contribute to the prosperity of Lagos, and of course by extension yourself. Yes, to the question that I asked, do you think we should just live the way we are now, lack of jobs, unemployment? Can't we start focusing our attention to some other things that will also yield some income, like the agri we talked about?
Yes, but sadly, a friend of mine is a social commentator of note. Nojeem Jimoh is his name. He actually relocated from the UK to Nigeria where somewhere in Ibadan, close to Ibadan, where he had acres of land, and he relocated with the intention of starting farming at large-scale farming. The last time we spoke, he's finding himself almost being run out of this business because one, he couldn't secure his farm. Is a, what do they call it again? A cycle of vicious cycle, isn't it? He goes into the farm with good intentions, helping himself and helping Nigerians, and as soon as they are off, then some other people, clearly jobless, hungry people, come into the farms, and they steal the little that they have been able to do in the farm. Right now, that is one scenario. Now, you don't just go into farming, you have to know about farming.
Skill.
In our days in secondary school, we did agricultural science. In primary school, and it actually included us having slots. What is it called? Allotments.
At a farmland.
Farmland, and each of us students actually had an allotment that we will plant this and we will plant that, and from it, and you will find that some people actually developed genuine interest in farming. We hardly find that in our schools these days. Secondly, in Western Europe today, farming is very highly subsidized. Very highly subsidized. The government in the UK tells the farmers, this is the price that you sell. All farm produce are regulated in terms of the pricing so that they remain affordable to the populace. So the government tells them, sell this at this price, sell this at this price. The difference between that and what should have been the market price, the government pays to the farmer. If our government can make this sort of deal with the people, especially all the graduates of agricultural science, agricultural economics and all that we have all over the place, then you will find some genuinely considering farming, knowing that they would not run at a loss.
We've talked about the poverty level of Lagosian. Has their interests more or less be taken care of in terms of alleviating poverty, particularly in Lagos State? What are the policies towards this?
It will be difficult for me to say yes, because you only have to compare the current governance regime to the Jakonde era, and the difference is huge. Now, Jakonde was governor between 1979 and 83, a very short period of 4 years. In that period, he built 16,000 housing units in a period of under 4 years, right? A lot of people that are living in their owned houses today, 16,000 families would not have been able to do that, but for the egalitarian policy of Jakonde. Now, the current government, and I'm not saying this by way of criticisms, but observation, the regime of Bola Tinubu, 8 years, and now Fashola just completed 6 years. Between them, have not built half of what Jakonde alone did in 4 years. Okay, people will probably say that time was different, but it wasn't different, but wages were much lower then as well, right? So everything was relative. What they made the houses or the housing units truly and genuinely affordable to the people. The housing units that we have seen, and they are in metropolitan areas, not necessarily in the villages or places where nobody wants to live. Ipmori today was made by Jakonde. Literally, everywhere you go, there is Jakonde Estate. He never named any of them Jakonde Estate. People named them Jakonde Estate. Now, as we speak today, if the government is genuinely committed to making housing affordable, housing is potentially affordable, because you can actually complete a 2-bed flat with 2 million naira. If the government would assume land at zero cost and say, bring in private developers, build, this is your margin, the government has contributed the land at 0% of the cost, those houses will be affordable.
Interesting. Finally, people, scavenging is something that's really catching on now in terms of making, we talk about poverty, people have even resorted to that in terms of earning a living. But my point is, it has not gotten to the extent that we are feeding from the bin for us to say, yes, we are poor. You know, this is a very, very popular saying. Any comment on this? We are not really poor, that's what I'm saying.
People are poor. We cannot deny that at all. And people are feeding from the bin. Quite literally, people are feeding from the bin. Someone gave us some fruits recently, and because I was alone, the fruits got bad, or so I thought, and I put them out to go in the bin. And 1 hour later, when I came out, the security guard in the housing estate where I live, who is in somebody else's employment, just came to me and said that he saw the stuff that I had put out to go in the bin, and that he's taking them to eat. And this was even somebody who had an employment, right? Anyone scavenging is actually literally living from the bin. Nobody should be doing that at all. I mean, you go onto a bin where all sorts, including human feces, are deposited, and you are rummaging through just to find something of value. And that is your job. Then nothing defines poverty more than that. Yes, people are very poor. The percentage, I don't know, but a lot of people are very poor in Lagos State.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nojeem Jimoh, the Group Executive Director of Tyros Holdings Limited. Thank you very much for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. So that's how it's been. We rub minds here, we bring up the issues, and it's for you to take what you think will be beneficial to you. But more importantly, what do you do for you to be prosperous? By extension, Lagos is prosperous. That's how it's been on this week's edition of Eko Onibaje. Do make it a date with us same time next week, when we shall be bringing another issue in the front burner for us to discuss and illustrate together. Until then, I remain Amina Mohammed. Bye for now. Bye for now.